Expected to take a very hard hit here in the Tampa-St. Pete area with the landfall expected after dark tonight. And the Biden administration has approved Florida's request for an emergency declaration. This really coming on the heels of devastation caused by Helene just 2 weeks ago. And now questions remain about FEMA's ability to respond to this disaster. So joining us now live on the phone is the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Madam Vice President, thank you so much for being with us. You, as well as the President, have expressed a lot of concern about, misinformation spread about FEMA in particular. What can you tell the people in Florida about the federal government's ability to help them out in this hurricane, especially after this hurricane?
Sure, Mike. I mean, first of all, let me tell you that we just had a very important briefing with the head of FEMA, Homeland Security, the National Oceanic Administration, and we are ensuring that federal resources are on the ground, pre-positioned to help folks with water and food, and also obviously personnel in terms of having folks on the ground who are going to work with the local and the state authorities so that we're well coordinated. We have more than 1,000 federal personnel on the ground in Florida right now, and we're going to continue to scale up, and we're working with these incredible local leaders to prepare. I would also emphasize that it's really important that your viewers, your listeners, listen to your local authorities. What has been emphasized over and over again is that this will be unlike any hurricane the region has ever experienced. And I know we got some tough Floridians who have dealt with the hurricanes before and have been fine. This is going to be different. So please listen to your local officials and understand the seriousness of this and your ability to frankly save your life, because this is expected to be not only dangerous but deadly. The other point, Mike, that I would make, especially came through on the briefing from the federal experts, it's really important that we think about the language that we're using to talk about what we are predicting. Because, for example, it has moved from time to time from a Category 5 to a Category 4. It's important that we not emphasize that downgrading has happened, because, in fact, the difference between Category 5 and Category 4 in terms of the danger and the damage is pretty much the same. Similarly, when we're talking about the surge threat, it may have dropped, it may increase, but it's still dangerous. It's still extremely dangerous. So it's important that we communicate to folks that there may be some fluctuations around some of the levels, but we are absolutely entirely within the zone of dangerous, deadly levels, regardless of how it fluctuates within that. And so I just want to emphasize that to you. And then, of course, for the folks who are still trying to survive and recover from Hurricane Helene, don't listen to anything or anybody who's trying to make you more afraid than you already are because of what has happened. There are federal resources you are entitled to receive without condition. And there are resources that are available to you to deal with what you need right now, to, for example, get money to be able to fill your prescriptions and deal with a hotel expense, and then there are resources available to you to help you recover over the longer term. The other point I would make is this, and I've done this work in my career. Sadly, there are some folks who, during the moment of a crisis, will be very predatory and start jacking up prices like gasoline or hotels or airlines to take advantage of the desperation people are experiencing. So to anybody who's thinking about jacking up those prices, those companies that are thinking about doing it, know that we are monitoring and we're watching. And if there is that kind of price gouging, that there will be a consequence for that, because it's just wrong to take advantage of people who are desperate for help. And so know that we're watching that as well.
Madam Vice President, I wanted to ask you about the cost of these disasters, because last year alone, the United States experienced 28 separate billion-dollar weather disasters. Is the current budget of FEMA able to keep pace with the increasing costs of these storms, and what's the plan there?
So FEMA has the resources it needs right now to deal with what has happened in terms of Helene and what we expect in terms of Milton, and we need Congress, when they come back, to put more resources into investing in resilience and adaptation around these extreme weather events. You know, these budgets so many of them were constructed around a bygone time. And Mike, what you know and all the work you've been doing over the years, if you track the way that this is all happening, it's getting worse. And FEMA's budget and these federal agencies that do this work need the resources to deal with this moment in time. And so I'm looking forward to Congress, when they come back, taking that seriously and giving them the resources they need to deal with the current moment.
I wanted to ask you about insurance, because we know that a lot of insurance companies have pulled out of hurricane-prone locations, including in Florida. What role can the federal government play in making not only insurance companies viable, but insurance affordable and available to homeowners?
It's a big issue, Mike. I mean, you know, I was Attorney General for 2 terms in California dealing with this around wildfires. And we've seen it happen in various places around the country, be it floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, or wildfires, where insurance companies are pulling out, and homeowners and renters are left footing the bill. And I'm going to be taking a look at all the options, because I know it's a big issue. And, you know, folks need help to be able to recover. And it really is. It's life-changing in so many tragic ways. And so I will be taking a look at this as we go forward.
Madam Vice President, I want to ask you a more specific question about, storm preparation and evacuation. We know that many of the beaches here have mandatory evacuations, but some people may not have the resources or the means to evacuate on their own. Is there any role the federal government, or maybe even in conjunction with state or local government, is there any role you can play in assisting people in circumstances like that?
Yes, and so part of what we want to do is make sure that people are in touch with FEMA and with your state and local folks, because they actually know how to help people get access to the resources that can help them with mobility, with transportation, with housing, and with their basic necessities in this moment of crisis. So it's important to reach out and know that there are people who are there, who are willing and able, and it's their job to help you, including for folks who need help with medical care, including with folks who have any type of physical disability or otherwise and are in need of extra assistance.
Governor DeSantis has accused you of politicizing this storm. What message would you say to people in letting them know that this is not campaign related, how you're responding to the storm?
Listen, I've spent my career concerning myself with the safety and the protection of people, and my heart just aches for what we've already seen in terms of the loss. I mean, I've talked with people I talked with a woman who just days before I talked with her, she lost her husband because of Hurricane Helene, and her daughter I talked with who lost her father. This is not a time for us to just point fingers at each other as Americans. It's really not. And, when I've had the experience of holding the hands of people who are grieving because of unfair, tragic loss, and anybody who considers themselves to be a leader should really be in the business right now of giving people a sense of confidence that we're all working together, and that we have the resources and the ability to work together on their behalf, on behalf of the people of our country. And that's what I'm focused on, and I welcome every and anyone to work with me and for us to be able to work together. I don't care who you voted for in the last election or who you're voting for in the next election.
Well, Madam Vice President, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Appreciate all your time, and thank you very much.
Mike, I know you're on the ground there. You please stay safe, okay? Thanks for all you're doing to help so many out. You take care.
Will do. Thank you so much, Madam Vice President. Kamala Harris speaking with us right now and talking about the federal government and their response to this storm, their ability to respond simultaneously to 2 disasters. Helene, that's still a work in progress across the southeast and here across Florida, and then the response that will happen now with Milton. This may be a little bit more confined response because it will not span across multiple states, but logistically it can be very, very complicated between local, state, and federal agencies to try to respond to these disasters.